Alright, so I'm back with a little something else for you guys. I don't know how many times I've talked about using water clay and people asking me about worrying about it when it dries out, and it dries out too fast for them, or they have issues, they can't revive it, they can't recycle it, any of that stuff. So what I got for you here today, this is an old critter piece, alright? And as you can see, it's pretty white and it is solid. This piece I let dry, and it's been dry, I honestly do not know how long. At least 6 months to a year. At least. Alright? What I'm going to do is, here I've got just a regular t-shirt rag, cut up from an old t-shirt, and I'm just going to dip it in water and wrap up the sculpture and kind of cover it and leave it overnight. So right now it's 10:56. It's almost 11 o'clock at night, and I'm gonna try to come back to this in the morning or tomorrow afternoon to see how to show you guys how soft it got, what happened, and everything. So getting the water wet, or getting the rag wet, you're gonna want to wring it out enough so that it's not dripping, but you don't want to wring it out so that it's dry. All right, so basically just give it a little squeeze, and then just take it out. And basically all I did is kind of wrapped up the sculpture. It actually feels a little bit dry, so I think I wrung out a little bit too much. All right, there we go. So just wrap it up. And then I'm going to put the bag over it just so that the rag doesn't dry out. It doesn't dry out as fast from the air, and rather the water from the rag soaks up into the sculpture. All right, so there you got it. Clay sculpture. It's been dry at least 6 months to a year. Wrapped up with water. I'm going to put it in the other room, and I'm going to say overnight, maybe 24 hours, and I'll come back and I'll show you guys just how soft it got. All right, so I'll catch you when this thing is soft. All right, so this sculpture is actually really dry. So what you'll notice here is I put the cloth on there at about 11 o'clock last night, let it seep in overnight, and the towel is pretty much dry now. It absorbed all the moisture from it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to soak it for a little bit longer. I'm going to re-soak the cloth and let it sit for a little bit longer, just because of how hard the sculpture is. Alright, so if you're working on a piece and it dries out, usually overnight it'll be back to a workable consistency or softness. But I'm going to show you guys that even if you guys let that thing dry out and it's been dry for a good 4 to 6 months, it's going to take a little bit longer to bring back to life, but it can still be done. Wrap it back up. And I'm going to put this in the other room, let it sit for a little bit longer. And I might have to rewrap it and respray it a couple more times, but it'll get soft at one point, and I'll share that with you. Alright guys, so I'm back, and this sculpture, it's about a week later, just because I wasn't 100% on board, on target with it, with keep wetting it down. So it took a little bit longer. But I would say if you kept on it and re-wet the rag at least 2, maybe 3 times a day, that you can get, as hard as it was, you could have brought it back to life within a few days. But to show you guys what happened, here you can see the sculpture. and it still has a few cracks in it, so it's not a new sculpture. I didn't sculpt it just to try to trick you guys. It's the same piece, but now you can see that the clay here is really soft. All right, so I can actually, bend it and pull it out, and it's a lot softer than it was. Remember, this was hard as stone, dried for at least 6 months. But you know, by just re-wetting it down and reworking it, I could go in and work more on this sculpture or take it apart. But it's totally pliable and ready to go now. So that's just some tips for you guys if you're scared about working with water clay, or if you're scared about your sculpture drying out. Honestly, all you really need to do is, after you're finished sculpting, if it's a fresh clay, fresh sculpt, all you need to do is cover it with a plastic bag. If you've been working on it for a little while and it's gotten to more of a leathery finish, then I would give it a quick spray just so that the plastic bag, it kind of adheres itself to the clay, and just so it holds that moisture in. And if you're going to hold on to a sculpture, I'd say go back in and it'll be good for a few weeks. After definitely after 3 weeks, you're going to want to take the bag off, kind of give it a quick spray down, and then cover it back up. But if you do happen to leave it out or it dries up too much on you, there's always ways to bring it back. Like I said, just use a rag, soaked with water, and just kind of usually just leave it in there overnight. And for most sculptures, it'll bring it back to life. For this one, if you let it dry out and it gets to a hard, solid stone like this one did after like about 6 months of letting it dry, then all you have to do is cover it with a rag, and kind of re-wet that rag every, I'd say, like 2 or 3 times a day, probably. And that'll get it faster, and you'll be able to do it. You'll be able to work on it in 2 or 3 days. So there you have it. How to bring a sculpture back to life. And just because the water clay dries out doesn't mean you can't work on it anymore. It doesn't mean you have to scrap it. It doesn't mean you have to start over. So hopefully this helped, guys, and I'll catch you guys on another video. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to my channel. Check out my website at alteregodesigns.com, and follow me on all the other social medias, and I'll catch you guys on another one. Let me know what you think.